Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving straight into a scientific mystery of literally global proportions. And the crazy thing, it doesn't just surround us, it's actually inside our biology. We're talking about the invisible invasion of microplastics. It's a material we invented to make life a breeze, right? But it's spread into nearly every corner of the planet. And scientists are uncovering a story that just keeps getting wilder with every new study. We're going to break down exactly what the latest research is telling us, where these tiny materials are hiding, and most importantly, what it all means for our health.
Okay, let's dive into this. Before we even get into the heavy science, just take a look around you right now. Look at your toothbrush. Look at the phone case you're probably holding. Think about the synthetic clothes you're wearing, or maybe that water bottle sitting right there on your desk. Plastic is everywhere. I mean, it is the defining material of the modern era for sure. But for years, scientists have been asking what happens when these items start to age and break down. And what they've discovered has sparked this massive, growing question worldwide. Are we all unknowingly consuming plastic every single day? Could this stuff actually be inside us?
Well, the answer appears to be yes. Just let that sink in for a second. What we all used to think of as just an ocean pollution problem, something way out there in the ocean or sitting in a landfill, has actually become an internal biological reality. To understand how it gets from our everyday products all the way into our bodies, we first need to figure out exactly what we're looking for.
The main culprit we're tracking today is tiny. Specifically, we're talking about anything less than 5 millimeters across. That is the official threshold scientists use. Anything smaller than 5 millimeters falls right into this category. Now, to truly wrap our heads around the scale of this invisible invasion, we really have to look closely at the lifespan of plastic. So, by definition, microplastics are exactly what they sound like, tiny pieces of plastic that break down from larger items. And this brings us to the absolute core of the problem. Plastic doesn't just truly disappear. It doesn't biodegrade like an apple core or a piece of cardboard. Instead, through exposure to sunlight, friction, just the general elements over time, it simply fractures. It just keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the incredible scale contrast we're dealing with. When we say less than 5 millimeters, we are talking about a massive spectrum. On the larger end of things, these fragments are about the size of a grain of rice. You can see them. But as that breakdown process continues, they eventually fracture into pieces so incredibly tiny, they literally become completely invisible to the naked eye. We are surrounded by them, we're interacting with them all day, every day, but we just can't see them.
So where do these invisible particles actually come from? Honestly, the sources are things you've probably touched multiple times today. The plastic bottles we drink out of, the food packaging we tear open, those eventually degrade. Then you have synthetic clothing. It sheds microscopic fibers every single time we run a wash cycle, or honestly, even when we just walk around. Even the friction from car tires rolling down the street is constantly releasing countless particles right into the environment. You combine all of that with the degradation of everyday household products, and you've got this massive, continuous generation of tiny fragments.
Which leads us to this really fascinating chronological detective trail. In past decades, researchers first started finding microplastics exactly where you'd expect, floating around in oceans and rivers. But as they kept looking, the trail moved closer and closer to home. In more recent years, they started finding them inside fish, then in our drinking water, and incredibly, even drifting around through the air. This led to a pretty stunning realization. Think about it. If microplastics are literally everywhere in the environment, couldn't they be inside us? Scientists started testing for it, and the results completely shocked the research community.
Recently, these discoveries got deeply personal. Scientists have detected these tiny plastic particles in human blood samples, in lung tissue, breast milk, placentas, even deep within human organs. Now look, while this doesn't necessarily mean you're in immediate, pressing danger, it does confirm a really remarkable and sobering reality. Plastic particles absolutely can enter the human body, and they travel so much farther into our critical tissues than scientists ever originally believed.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because how exactly does this plastic actually breach our bodies? Well, the pathways are surprisingly ordinary. Number one is eating. Microplastics have been found in seafood, salt, fruits, vegetables, you name it, especially packaged foods. As waste breaks down out in the environment, it basically just enters the food chain. Number two is drinking. Both bottled water and tap water have consistently been shown to contain varying amounts of microplastic particles. And number three, breathing. Scientists now know for a fact that these particles float. Every single day, people inhale dust that contains tiny plastic fragments without even realizing it.
So eating, drinking, and breathing, our absolute most basic human functions, are the primary entry points.
Now, because of those everyday pathways, there's a good chance you might have already seen some pretty terrifying headlines online. The most famous one out there claims that people consume the equivalent of a credit card's worth of plastic every single week. It's shocking, right? It's a highly viral statistic that paints a really vivid, almost unbelievable picture in your head. But is it actually true? In this explainer, we really want to look directly past the social media hype and see what the grounded, actual scientific consensus says about this specific claim.
So, the crucial point is this: the exact amount is highly debated by scientists. Measuring microplastic exposure in the real world is incredibly difficult, and different studies honestly produce vastly different estimates. So while that viral credit card metric is definitely memorable, it sticks with you for sure, what researchers genuinely agree on right now is simply that humans are regularly exposed to microplastics through multiple different sources. The absolute precise amounts, whether it's a whole credit card or just a tiny fraction of that, that is still actively being investigated.
Okay, so the next logical question is, should we be worried? Look, finding plastic inside the human body does not automatically mean it's causing immediate harm. The long-term effects are still largely unknown, but we do have some interesting clues from the laboratory. Some lab studies suggest that microplastics might trigger inflammation or act as carriers for other harmful chemicals. They might affect our cells under specific conditions or generally disrupt normal biological processes. But keep in mind, this is a really complicated reality. Researchers are still aggressively gathering evidence to figure out exactly how these isolated lab findings translate to actual living humans over the span of a lifetime. Right now, we are essentially a living, breathing experiment.
Because of all those unanswered questions, the most absolutely crucial takeaway right now is awareness, not panic. The science is still evolving. It's moving fast, but it's evolving. The reason experts are paying such incredibly close attention, though, is because global plastic production has just grown so dramatically over the past several decades. As more and more plastic enters the world, more of it inevitably breaks down. And that means future generations are going to face a much heavier, invisible burden unless our global waste management and recycling systems improve significantly.
So can you avoid them completely? No, you can't. They are simply too widespread. But you definitely aren't powerless here. You can make some really targeted lifestyle swaps today. Switch to glass or steel water bottles. Choose natural fiber clothing to stop that synthetic shedding in the wash. And please, never microwave your food in plastic containers. You can also drink filtered water and take steps to improve your indoor air quality to reduce the plastic dust you might inhale. These simple, everyday edits, they won't eliminate the risk entirely, sure, but they will drastically cut down your personal exposure.
Microplastics represent one of the most fascinating and honestly urgent environmental discoveries of the modern era. I mean, think about it. This is a material that has been found in the deepest oceans, on remote mountain peaks, locked deep inside polar ice, and now inside us. It's wild. So the next time you pick up a plastic bottle and toss it into the bin, I want you to leave with this final thought. Where will its journey really end? Thanks so much for joining me on today's explainer. Keep asking questions and keep learning.